Hello everyone, welcome back to my 2015 tutorials. This is the third installment on our pontoon airplane. This is kind of how we left off. We just got to make our little leg extensions and we'll be done with the pontoon section of this project. So to create our leg sections, we need to actually use a CV curve tool to kind of create this curvature that's going to go along with our legs. Yes, there is easier ways to create this, but this will kind of give you an introduction on how to use the CV curve tool to do extrusions. So to create a CV curve, we're going to go to Create, CV Curve Tool. I actually have it on my shelf. This is one right here, and that's the one I like to use. Just because I like to keep everything on my shelf, all the tools I like to use, and it just makes my workflow a lot faster. You guys should do the same. Okay, so to use the CV curve tool, it's best to be inside the orthographic view. That way it locks your CV curve tool down to two axes. If you use it in this view, it doesn't tell you which two axes you're using. It kind of works off the perspective view, and it's just unpredictable. So go into your four-panel view, this little icon right here, and let's go to our front view, this one right here. Okay, so I want to create my CV curve going from about right here and kind of going up this little and upward, creating this leg essentially. So kind of along this line. So activating my CV curve. You see it's now active over here. If you create your CV curve tool, so let's double click this so I can show you what I'm talking about. And it creates lines that are just kind of blocky. It might be on linear. Make sure curve degree is set to cubic. That way you get this kind of smooth curve. So that's all you need to know about that. I'll just close this up. Okay. So 5 points. I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll hit enter, complete. So now I have this nice little curve. And if you look down here, this is the manipulator back at the world axis of the origin here. I want my manipulator to be up with my curve, so I'm going to center the pivot. This little icon right here is for center pivot on my shelf. If you don't have this added yet, just go to Modify, Center Pivot. There we go. Alright, so we're done with creating our curve. All we need to do is exit out of this area now and go to our perspective view. And now we need to create a cylinder, so we have some geometry to extrude along this curve. So I'm going to go to Create, Polygon Primitives, Cylinder. Okay, just bring this up. Now the only part of this new piece of geometry that I need is the cap. I don't need anything else. So I'm going to change my component type to face mode. So hovering my mouse over the top of my cylinder, right mouse button select, go to face mode, do a little marquee box around this new geometry on the bottom, just leaving the cap, and I'll hit delete. Go back to object mode and select my cylinder cap. And now I'll center the pivot. There we go. We're good. Alright, I do want to change the shape of this a little bit because I don't want to extrude out around like a tube going along this curve. I want to be more of an oval. So I'm going to change this to my scale mode. Hit R for scale. Just click this icon here. And there we go. We have more of an oval shape. Not quite so big though. There we go. Okay, that looks about right for now. Okay, so now I need to have this cap actually be at the base of my curve I created. So I'll just stick it down inside my pontoon and I'll hit F and that'll frame it in so that now it's right in focus. And, I need this to be near the bottom of the curve. And I need the curve to puncture the cap. It gives me the best results. There we go. Now I can shift select this curve here, and with this cap selected, I shift select the curve. Now I run my extrude. And it goes from the bottom up to the top, and it's just one division going all the way up. Now I need to change this because I don't want it to be just one division. I want there to be more divisions. Let's do 10 divisions. That sounds appropriate. Okay, there we go. That looks good. Now it actually follows that curve there. If I select it, I can see that's got nice even spacing, and that looks great. Okay. Now, one thing I want to note though is that using a cylinder, I have a bunch of triangles here. Now, if we're working on this for a game engine, triangles are usually a big no-no. for multiple reasons. This doesn't come into a game engine well with triangles, so we're going to get rid of those. We'll just delete them. Also, when it works with modeling, triangles tend to end edge loops and other kinds of geometry modifications. So we just don't want triangles. We want to work with quads. So we're going to delete off this cap, and as long as this cap down here is selected, which it isn't, so I'll just delete the top cap first. I'll hit delete, and then I will select the bottom faces down here. Now I can see that I accidentally grabbed something I didn't want. All I have to do is just deselect them. So I'll turn on my X-ray mode so I can see. Hold down Control, left mouse button drag. Now this is a deselection mode, so I can deselect the selected faces I don't want while keeping the other ones. There we go. And I can hit delete. Now that bottom cap is gone. Okay. Turn X-ray back on. Now I'm going to add a little bit more interest to my shape here. I want this cap here, and I want these lower faces here to have a little bit more. I'm going to put a little like color on them so that they have a little bit more interest to them. So I'm going to run my extrude tool one more time. There we go. And I'll pull it out like so. So now I have this little collar. And I didn't use the power symbol. If I used this little power symbol thing, that would have made it to where it went to the center of this object. And when I went to, I'd have to use my scale tool to pull this out. Instead, I could just use my translate Z, and that just pulls it straight off the geometry, which is exactly what I'm after. Okay, go back to object mode. Good. I'm going to translate this one over. Now you see there's this curve left behind. That's what we created our foot off of, and we can leave it there. It doesn't render, but if we want to get rid of it, we can get rid of it. Now, some of you might be like, okay, I'm going to get rid of it. Select it here, and I'm going to hit delete. And you're like, where'd my leg go I just made? These are connected by history. We extruded from them. So until we break the connection from them, we have to delete the history off this, or before we do that. So to prove this is still connected by history, beyond let's go back to object mode for a second. If I translate this back and forth, this curve actually controls the shape here. Beyond that, I can actually still adjust the shape of my foot here by controlling the control vertexes of my curve here. So I can grab this guy here and change the shape this way, and it changes the shape of how my leg looks. If I wanted to get to where I could have some kind of weird offset like that, there we go. That's all there is to it. And I have an interesting looking connection there. I don't know about all of that. I don't really need that much of an adjustment. I do like having a little bit of an adjustment though. Let's go ahead and just bring this up a little bit, and maybe just bring this over a little bit more. And yeah, that looks okay. Maybe push this off a little bit. There we go. So these are all adjustments I just made because I thought they looked aesthetically pleasing. They may not comply with the reference images, but it doesn't matter to me because this is my airplane. I'm not making for anybody else, so I can make it however I want. If you're making for someone else, you probably want to comply with the reference images. Okay. So now that I'm done with this leg here, I'm just going to select it, and to get rid of that history, that's connecting the two of them, I'm going to use this icon here as delete history. If you don't have this one on your shelf, you should add it. Go to Edit, Delete by Type, History, and hold down Control Shift at the same time and left mouse button. That'll add it to your shelf. Or you can just left mouse button click here and deletes the history. Now I can move this guy here, and you'll see it has no effect. So now I can just delete it, and it's done. Okay, so I need to create a second one for the other leg. So I'll just hit Control D and just move it on forward. There we go. Easy peasy. Alright. And let's say that I'm going to make sure these are all following the same naming convention. So I'm going to call this one Mesh Pontoon Leg 1. Okay. Control C. Select this one over here. Select this one. Control V. Hit Enter. My automatically calls it leg 2 because we can't have the same name for two different objects. Okay, so our pontoon's done. And once we're done with the fuselage, we'll bring this object back and have it connected. So for right now, I need to close this all down. I don't need this anymore. So I'm going to create a new layer to put my mesh on. So channel box layer editor here. If you don't have it active, you can just pull it up over here, and then you'll have this tab, and we need to create ourselves another layer. So we're going to select this icon here, and now we have layer 1. So you have your mouse over here, it says create a new layer, little piece of paper with a light bulb on it. Now if you double click this guy here, we're going to call this one base mesh. Oh, mine doesn't like not having spaces for the layers, so let's go ahead and put an underscore there. There we go. Alright, so now I just need to add these guys in. So I'm just going to select both these guys, or everything really, and I'll add it to base mesh. Add selected objects. View off and on. Okay, so the cap here, I think that this is added in somewhere that I don't want it, so let's see where it's at. I think it's probably inside the references. Yep, there it is. Let's go add this one instead. There we go. I'll have to remove from this one too. So remove selected object. There we go. Oh, it's still in there. Okay, so what a stubborn guy. Okay, so let's check the outliner. I see what's going on. Okay, let's just pull this guy out. There we go. There we go. Now it's working just fine. Alright, so we're all done with our pontoons. Let's go ahead and turn off visibility for both. Alright, so now we need to create the reference images for our fuselage. So let's go ahead and get after that. We're going to create ourselves a couple new planes. So create polygon primitives plane. And the dimensions for this plane is going to be 12 by 16. So we're going to have poly inputs. 16 on width, 12 on height. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to create all three of them at the same time. So I'm going to call this one ref bottom. I'll hit Control D. And I can tell that since I have my manipulator here, this is my y-axis and my x-axis, so I can tell that this is my front view. This is my z, which is front and back, or goes in depth. So if I rotate it in the x direction, 90 degrees, I know that this is my front view, so I can call this ref front. If I hit Control D again, I now have no duplicate, and I can rotate it 90 degrees in the Y, and I know that now this one has to be my side, so ref side enter. Now it's completed. Okay, good. So now I need to go ahead and pull in some new lamberts to attach in those shaders. That's going to be my reference image work. So going to my hypershade here. Okay, scrunch this down a little bit. I'm going to create number 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 actually. But let's go ahead and get right after this. So put 7 over here. Actually, let's just clear this all out. Get my workspace clean. So erase all these out. Just pull 5 down here. 5 is going to be my bottom lambert. Okay, and we've done this a lot of times, so I'm going to really run through this fast. I'm going to call it ref bottom lambert, and I'm going to go and just go to the color attribute, go to File, Folder, and ref bottom reference. Okay, good. Clear this workspace out. I'm going to pull in 6, and 6 I'm going to put on as front view. So, and I'm going to go ahead and name this one ref front. Good. Okay, so going down to color attribute, file, front, file, folder, and we're actually this one is it's going to say back. It's the same thing as the front though. That's the image they gave us, so that's the image we use. Alright, that's looking good. Now we just need one from the side, so I'm going to go ahead and clear this out again. So use my little eraser icon. Pull in Lambert 7 here. Go ahead and call Lambert 7 ref side Lambert. Select this guy. I'm going to go ahead and add it in there. So now I have ref side Lambert. I know I was going a little bit fast on this, but my allocation for shaders lately, as what I've been using, is select the shader, middle mouse button on the shader, and then drag and drop it onto my object. The other way is to just select the object, right mouse button on top of the shader, and go to assign material to selection. Same thing, just whatever workflow works best for you. Go in color, file, folder, and side reference. Excellent. Alright, so now I'm done with my hypershade. I can go ahead and close this down. I don't know if I've mentioned, but the hypershade was this icon right here. I might have just blew right past that. But so you have your perspective, your 4-panel, your outliner, your graph editor with perspective, and then your hypershade. That's the one we used. Okay, so spacebar in the middle, and I'm moving it out of here. Now I need to make sure that all my texture information is being used up. And right now it's not. I can already tell this by looking at the pictures. So I need to go in the UV texture editor and edit the UVs to be able to take up all the texture information. So I'm going to select this icon right below the outliner. It says panel layout. This one's my perspective graph editor. I'll go to panels, panel, UV texture editor. Okay, now we're looking good. Let's select my side view here first. I'll turn on, you want to make sure this one icon here is on. This is for showing you that your image is in the background. Then I have this one icon here for UV texture shading, and that's what I'm after. Now, I need to go into UV mode, so I'll hold down right mouse button inside this little blue island. And now I'm going to select these little corners like they're vertexes, and I'm going to use my translate tool, and I'm going to move it up to the top where it's taking up all my UV space. Alright, so that's looking good. Close out of this one, go to my next one. Same deal, go to my UVs, right mouse button inside of my blue area, select UV, select the top 2 UVs, and move them up just like they're vertexes. Okay, that's good. And last one. Select this guy here, go to UV, select these 2 UVs, and I'm going to translate them up just like everything else. There, now all my 1x1 space is used up, all the texture information is there. So I'm done with my UV texture editor for now. I'm going to press space bar inside here, and I'm going to go ahead and match this stuff up. Object mode, select this guy right here, and I'm going to make sure they all fit before I'm done. So I'll use my scale tool here, and I'll just bump this out just a little bit just to make sure that the nose matches up. This is going to be just off visual. No exact coordinates here. That looks close enough. Okay, and I'm going to make it a little bit wider so it matches up with that wingspan. That's good. Okay. Alright, so I think I'm happy with all this. So I'm done. All I'm going to do is move all these guys apart because I'm not going to model it with it in the middle of my work area. So back to my channel box. Go to object mode. I'm going to take this guy here and I'm going to move him down in the y-axis. Now make sure you're looking at your translates here. If you're moving in the wrong direction, you're going to have a problem. A good way to make sure you're modeling correctly is before you even do this process, just go ahead and create yourself a cube. Create polygon primitive cube. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my 4-panel view, and I'm going to, as I move these into the direction that I want them, make sure that my cube stays in view. If it doesn't, disappears from view, I know that I moved my panels in the wrong direction. Now you should be able to already know which direction you're moving in. For instance, when you're looking at the down view here, you know this should go down. So as you push it down, you can see that it doesn't disappear from view over here. Now if I was to push it up, all of a sudden my cube is gone. So push it down. Okay, so my side view here. If I was to move it in this direction, I can see positive values and my box disappears. If I push it the other direction, I got negative values. My box stays there. So negative values tells you that your your box should stay visible. Just like here, we have negative values. We pushed it down. Negative values for the x. So negative values for the z. Would that make sense? Positive values. Okay, my box disappeared, so I have to obviously keep it the negatives. All right, so now my grid space over here is all opened up, and now I can model, and I can keep the box in view on all sides here, and I'm ready to go. All right, so I already have my cube, so I'm going to start from my side view here, press spacebar here, and I'm going to go to vertex mode. All right. Oops. I'm actually going to name it first. Let's call this one Mesh Fuselage. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to my vertex mode. And I'm going to make sure, oops, all the vertexes. I want to make sure that it kind of matches up very generally before I get into messing with the overall topology of my box here. So I'm just kind of blocking this out. I'll turn on X-ray, that'll help me out. Okay, that looks okay. All right, so now I know it fills this area. Let's go ahead and check the other ones, make sure it's about the same. Okay, so this one, I'm gonna move it out wide. I know that the fuselage is round, so I'm not gonna try agonizing over it's overlapping stuff. It doesn't bother me because I know what I'm going to do in the long run. In the long run, is edit the shape of this. Let's keep looking at this guy over here. Okay, that all matches up. Okay, so we're good. Let's go ahead and go back to the side view here. Now I'm ready to actually add some new geometry and to change the shape of this object here. So I'm going to use my insert edge loop tool, and I'm going to use one edge loop right here, and that will help me hold. I'll put one more over here. This will help me hold the high points of my airplane. And I'm going to add in one kind of halfways down, and I'm going to add in one at the low point of where the propeller goes in here, and maybe just one more right there. Okay, so exit out my insert edge loop tool. If you don't exit out, you'll have a problem. Go to vertex mode. So right mouse button on top of the object, vertex. Now I'm going to grab each vertex and kind of move it up to where it lines up with this guy. Now don't just do one of these where you select the vertex and then try to translate this down, because you'll have some weird results. You can see here that's you just grabbed one side of it. You need to get both sides. There we go. Alright, so I'm adjusting the vertexes of my airplane. That's good. And them to follow along with the curvature of my airplane. Okay. Now these ones are going to go inside the propeller area, and I'm not really worried about whether they follow the curvature a whole bunch, just because, like I said, they're going to be hidden inside the propeller. So I'll just grab them and push them up a little bit. There we go. We'll push these back a little bit. Alright, that's looking good. Let's go ahead and check it from the other views. Put my floor panel here. Okay, I think that from the top view we're going to do some editing. Now, we're going to actually work on this symmetrically. Now, you can, since this is going to be a little bit skewed, since the image of this isn't perfect, it's got a little bit of a rotation to one side. I'm going to pick one side to model and then delete off one half and then mirror it over. And I know that sounds a little complicated without me showing you how to do it, but we're going to walk through it step by step, and you'll see how we're going to get there in the long run when we're done. Just kind of telling you what we're doing as we're going forward. Alright, so back to my insert edge loop tool. I need one to be in the center here. So I want to make sure that I have equal distance from edge turned on with a single edge loop. And that looks about right. Somewhere in here. That's fine. Alright, so now I'm going to have to pick a side that I'm going to model on. So I'm going to actually go with this side. And really there's no wrong side because you're just going to mirror the other side over. Okay, so I'm just going to move these guys over. And I need a little bit more geometry in here and in here. So I just jumped back into my Insert Edge Loop tool, just took it off my shelf. W for translate. W for translate. Let's readjust this one just a little bit. Okay. Something here. So quite 100% correct. There we go. That's a little better. Okay. Okay, so now I'm ready to get rid of the other half because I don't need it. So I'm just going to go ahead and ditch it. So hit that and hit delete. Okay. So let's go back to our perspective and see what we're looking at here. Okay, that looks okay. Now, I need there to be some more geometry along the sides here to help with the curvature of this airplane, or is it just not going to look right? So I'm going to select my Insert Edge Loop tool. I'm going to add one edge loop going on the side here. Now I have equal distance from edge turned on, so I'm going to turn on the relative so we get that straight line going through. There we go, that's a little bit better. And it still has a little bit of a zag because it's going with this curvature here. I'm going to straighten that out with my scale tool. So I have my Insert Edge Loop tool where I drop that in there. I'm going to press R for scale. I'm going to use my Y, the green box here, to flatten out this line. So there we go. That was good. W for translate. I'll flip that up. Now I want it to be just a little bit above the bottom on this side, and I don't really care as long as it's somewhere in the middle over here. Alright, so that looks good. Okay. So now I am ready to start to adjust the overall roundness of this guy. So I need to go to my 4-panel again. And I need to do my work from this side and from over here. So I'm going to leave my 4-panel open. I need essentially these 3 faces, which are my widest faces. I want to make sure those are right where they need to be. And it looks right now like it's just a little too wide. So I'm going to go to my vertex mode. I'm going to actually bring all this in just a little bit. Okay. Now what I'm doing here is I'm making sure that curvature here, like the maximum, is going to be right in there. Alright, so that looks okay. Okay. Now, this line that I dropped in the middle here, that's going to retain the curvature of my airplane. Now I'm going to have to use these vertexes on the side here to get more curvature in. So here's where I'm going to have to leave my reference images behind. I'm going to have to do some of this by hand. So I'm going to do that by moving this group of 3. I'm going to kind of go down and just do this all by eye. So I'm going to have to move these guys in, and I'll start getting some of that curvature. And I'll use my scale tool to kind of flatten some of this out. There we go. That's looking a little bit better. This one here looks like it's a little bit too far. Let's go and push that one back a little bit. Now here's the thing. And we'll push this one in just a little bit. And that one too. Okay, we're going to be doing this to all of them actually. There we go. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm pushing them over so that this kind of gives me this roundness. Now I need to drop them down a little bit so that they go over and in. That way you get that That's how roundness works. You have the verts next to them. They can't be parallel with this spine, so they have to be lower. It doesn't have to be a lot, so you have to use your visual information and do this a little bit by what looks right to you. There's no 100% formula that's going to get you there, so you're going to have to be able to do some of this yourself. Alright, so that looks okay to me. Do the same thing to the bottom. So I'm going to push these guys in. Just push all of them in. Okay, so I'm going to just translate them in. I'm going to translate them up. Now obviously this isn't going to be right all the way across the board. So if you look at the back one's got an issue. I'm going to just straighten that out myself. So I'll just push that back over to make it look right. There we go. Okay, so I'm just about satisfied with that. I need a little bit more curvature to this because it's still a little too blocky for me. So I'm going to add in some more edge loops. I'm going to turn my insert edge loop, and I need to turn on insert with edge flow. And what that's going to do is going to help with the curvature of some of this roundness. So I'm going to try the first one. Just drop one in there. You see how it pops it out just a little bit, so it helps with the curvature of my fuselage. You drop in one more over here. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and let's go ahead and add one more going vertically right here and one more vertically right here. And that will help with keeping this the sharpness of the drop from where the pilot would sit, where the wings are going to be sitting up here, to where the propeller is when we smooth it. So you can use your smooth preview by pressing 3. You can see what I'm talking about. That looks good. Okay. So now if you didn't move anything off the center, you should be able to do a very easy mirror. If you did move something off the center and you don't get a very good mirror, is all you have to do is select your entire edge, activate your scale tool, move your red box or the X to the center, and that will straighten out all your edges so that now they are perfect. Okay, so now let's go to object mode, and we're going to select, I'm in rendering right now, I gotta switch over to polygons. I'm going to select, let's see here, it's underneath edit mesh, I believe. I could be wrong. I'm looking for mirror geometry. Oh, it's underneath mesh. Mirror geometry, I'll open up the submenu for that guy. Now it's got positive Z, negative Z. I'm pretty sure we're in the X, so let's go with negative X. Let's try that one first. Apply. Nope, it's not negative X. Let's undo that. Go to positive X. Make sure merge with the original and merge vertexes are turned on. Go ahead and apply. Okay. So that takes care of that. Now I got my propeller taken care of, or not my propeller, my fuselage taken care of. I'll go ahead and close that out. Go to object mode, and I can press 3 to preview what I've got going on here. That looks pretty clean. I like to look at that. Undo the preview by pressing 1. Okay. And now we're in a good position now to go ahead and start working on our propeller area next and our wings. But before I do that, I'm going to go and make sure that all my reference images were stored onto a reference layer. I kind of skipped past that. So I'm going to create one new layer. I'll call this one reference fuselage, and no spaces, that's right. Go ahead and hit save, and I'll select all my reference images and add to that. Add selected object. Okay, so I can turn those on to reference, and we're good. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and save. We're at over a half an hour now, so save this scene here, continue. And in the next project, we'll go ahead and get into working with the propeller and the wings. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next project.